It's a kitty mustache. I love this boy. He's my best boy. Hi friendships, welcome back. It's another Magical Monday here. That means it's time for a magical movie review. If you're new around these parts, we are doing an MCU series. So we just finished phase 1 of the MCU with the Avengers. And so today we're continuing the theme with Iron Man 3. So if you haven't seen any of the other magical movie reviews for the MCU yet, definitely make sure you check that out so you can get caught up. We break things down into 4 major parts here on Magical Movie Review. We talk about magical moments, which are things that I like about the movie or that bring me joy. We also talk about enchanting efforts, which is what I call things that I may not super enjoy about the movie, but we like to try to keep it positive here on Magical Movie Review. And we also select a VMP, or a very magical person that wins the episode or the movie. And then we top it all off with my rankings of the film in that series so far. So if you're interested to see where Iron Man 3 falls on the full list of my rankings, definitely make sure you stick around to find out. Before we get too much farther, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you can be alerted every time a magical movie review gets posted. I literally ran out of ideas for Iron Man Disney bounds. I usually try to bound for these episodes, but you know, your girl was tired today. So I went with a classic MTV tank and my trusty Mickey Mouse headband because I have to keep my hair out of my face, and I'm trying really hard not to put my hair up because my hair was starting to like fall out here, like on my temple. So just trying to do my part for my hairs. Alright, so let's dive right into magical moments. First thing I'll say is Iron Man 2, one of my least favorites. Go back and watch that magical movie review to find out why overall, but Iron Man 3 is a big step up in comparison to the plot of Iron Man 2. We still have a lot of complexities, we have a lot of plots kind of sprinkled in throughout the movie, but they all end up tying together at the end. So I would say the complexity is a half step between Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 1. It's easy to follow. There's a few things in there that kind of just really make me question some of the decisions that were made, but I think it's a good plot overall. I also enjoy that we get a little bit more of Tony Stark than we do Iron Man in this movie, because coming off of the Avengers, we're getting a lot of just heavy Iron Man, and so it's nice to take a break and just see Tony Stark, the man that we know and love. Honestly, I think Iron Man is one of my favorite Avengers because of just Tony Stark and who he is outside of the Iron Man suit. So I enjoy movies more when I get to see more of the faces behind the heroes, if that makes any sense. I think it was a big decision, and maybe just a thoughtful decision, to make it more Tony heavy throughout the movie, because we get such jam-packed Iron Man action at the end with all 40 some odd, I think it's 42 marks of the Iron Man suits coming out at the end. That's a lot of iron that we're dealing with. So I think there was a balance there that they had to work with just having Tony and then just like throwing Iron Man in your face. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed having more of a storyline this time than more of the action that we just came off of with the Avengers. Just that transition from focusing so heavy on Tony and how just smart he is. Really, what makes Tony special is just his intelligence. And in the fight scene with the lava people, which is what I like to call them, because that's basically what they are, when he's in Rock Hill, Tennessee, he has a few of his gadgets, sure, that he has in his back pocket that he uses, but ultimately it's his brain, it's his intelligence that gets him out of that situation and ultimately saves the kid too. I really enjoyed that fight scene for that purpose. I think when I see the Avengers crush it and really fight for their lives without their full strength is when I cheer for them most. And I feel like that's a pretty common theme for most people too. I'll also say, just as a mental health advocate outside of my pop culture content that I post, I think it's so incredibly important that they made this film focus on Tony and his mental state. He literally was willing to sacrifice himself. He was convinced that he was gonna die when he shot himself through that wormhole, ultimately to fall back through and recover. But mentally coming back from that, I'm surprised that more of these Avengers don't have just mental breakdowns all the time. I mean, we kind of get it later on with Thor, spoiler alert. It's really interesting to see that people who are so incredibly smart and talented and heroes for so many people are also human themselves. They have human qualities that make them more relatable. I mean, who wouldn't have some PTSD from everything that just happened and basically destroying New York City? I think his panic attacks that we see honestly gave me more suspense. I felt like I had more of an emotional or even sort of physical reaction to watching his anxiety attacks on the screen, because I can relate to that and feeling overwhelmed. And when we have that scene between him and Rhodey, and he goes out and he gets into the Iron Man suit and he's telling Jarvis to check for all of these physical ailments, he's so incredibly convinced that it has to be something physical because he's not used to dealing with his mental state. And so this movie really throws us into a whole different kind of villain of depression, anxiety, and how we work through those emotions, how we work through those events. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. I think that there's a couple people out there that think that that's boring and overplayed, and to those people I would say congratulations on your perfect mental health to where you can't relate. Congratulations. I got a really great comment from somebody on the Iron Man 2 magical movie review. Sailor of Fortune, if you're out there, this one is for you, but they say a commonality of all the Iron Man movies is how Tony Stark created his own villains by his past behaviors and actions. That can't be any more true in Iron Man 3. I love this villain story. This guy, this normal guy who's just so incredibly passionate about science and technology, who goes to Tony as a hero of his, and in that day and age, Tony was a hero to no one except himself, and ultimately created his own villain by making that poor man wait on the roof. That man ends up being Aldrich Killian, who comes back as an entrepreneur and is trying to get into or get involved with Stark Industries with Pepper, and ends up being the mastermind behind the Mandarin. Which, this was the first time I watched the movie, of course I knew that he was going to be some kind of adversary to Tony Stark, kind of coming back as like a villain that Tony created, but I didn't see it coming where he was the mastermind behind the Mandarin. Which of course, Ben Kingsley playing the Mandarin in this movie is just hysterical. I love it when we finally get him to reveal his true side. I laugh for that entire sequence. Anytime he's on the screen as Trevor, it's just so good. The villain arc and how we come to be here at the end of the movie is just phenomenally done. I think it's well written, but that does lead me into my enchanting efforts. So Killian invents basically indestructible humans, to which I call the lava people, because basically they use their body heat to reactivate all their muscles and regrow and regenerate. Sorry, now I have cat hair in my nose. To the point where like they could just completely be destroyed and melted and live. It's ridiculous. I like the idea of Killian kind of trying to come up with his own super soldier serum, but this whole like red hot people thing drives me crazy. First of all, how do their clothes not melt off when they get into this like red hot rage. We're kind of going back to, how does Captain America's pants not rip off when he turns into Captain America? And how does the Hulk keep wearing pants? His shirt rips off, but his pants don't. I don't really understand that. So we're getting into that territory. I don't like it. I don't like those little minions. But the other thing that drives me crazy every single time I watch this movie is when Killian kind of reveals that he is also this super soldier because of his disability at the beginning of the movie, is kind of like the driving force of why he did this for himself. He just turns into a fucking dragon. Rhodey comes in to try to save the day, and Killian just like breathes fire at him out of his mouth. Like, I feel like we just took it a few steps too far in that particular example, but in many moments where like I'm just completely taken out of the movie when that happens. Like, it just doesn't seem to fall in line with what's happening. It's just ridiculous. I hate it. I hate the fire-breathing villain. I'm out. I'm done. I also thought just the kidnapping of Pepper Potts and then torturing her like shirtless, like just wearing a bra, that was just a little unnecessary. You can torture her with a shirt on. Like, you're literally just showing off how little body fat percentage Gwyneth Paltrow has. Like, that's literally all you're doing it for. Sorry, I'm not impressed. This is an enchanting effort because I'm just not entirely sure how I feel about the ending sequence overall. I do like the idea of the party and all of the Iron Man suits showing up, and it's just this big brawl. One, the Iron Man suits somehow fit multiple people, even though they've all been especially made for Tony. So that doesn't really make any sense to me. But then if the minion guy can make his hand melt an entire tower in Rose Hill, Tennessee, how is Killian and then ultimately Pepper Potts, who is a lava monster now, not melting the Iron Man suit at such high temperatures? Like, let's say that their specifications match Tony's in the Iron Man suit and it fits them perfectly great. But it just doesn't make sense to me. There's a couple of questions that I have there at the end, to where like the action is great, seeing all the Iron Man suits blow up is magical. There's so many questions as to like the laws of physics and science and technology work for some people but not others. It doesn't do well for me. And then the only other thing that I'll say as far as an enchanting effort is that apparently Tony Stark only cares somewhat about the environment. He just totally tosses his arc reactor into, or the new element reactor into the ocean when he goes to clean up his house. So he picks up some trash to take with him that's basically just benefiting himself, but everything else, you know, could just go into the ocean. It's fine. It's totally fine. Alright, so that brings us to our VMP. Of course, without fail, this time I'm gonna say Tony Stark. While he doesn't care about the environment in this movie, which is important to me, I do think that he shows a lot of vulnerability. He shows the importance of listening to your body and making sure that you're paying attention to your mental health, even if you are someone who's never had to deal with that before. I just think that this is showcasing how incredibly intelligent he is. We're getting back to the roots of Iron Man in the beginning, where he's given a box of scraps and he can make an Iron Man suit. Different situation, but he's just being plugged into all of these different scenarios and he's coming out on the other side because of his intelligence. I've got my rankings of the MCU movies coming up. But before we do that, make sure that you like this video if you like the content so far, or if you have any arguments one way or the other about magical moments, enchanting efforts, or your own VMP, make sure to put that in the comments below so that we can have a conversation about it. I love doing that. Alright, so for my rankings, I'm going to keep the Avengers at the top, then move on to Iron Man, then Captain America, the First Avenger, then Thor, Iron Man 3, Captain Marvel, Iron Man 2, and then end it with The Incredible Hulk. I definitely toggled back and forth between Thor and Iron Man 3. They had about the same number of pros and cons either way, but of course I think it just came down to, if I had these two movies as options, I'm probably gonna watch Thor before I watch Iron Man 3, or at the very least watch them both at the same time. Thank you all so much for watching. Of course, I want to dedicate this week's episode to Chadwick Boseman. He passed over the weekend with a 4-year battle with colon cancer, and he has been a hero to so many young Black men and women. Although he may be gone, he will always be King T'Challa, Wakanda forever.